done, got it, done. And then I'm gonna do record to the cloud as well. Good. So anyway, so this Havdalah event started with the idea that Henry Epstein, who owns our funeral, the Jewish funeral home here in town, would be talking with us about his business. I have no idea what he would say. I can only say that even though he kind of he failed us. He's a wonderful human being. I had a personal friend of mine. We have traveled together, even through Eastern Europe. And I am really crazy about him. And I must tell you, when I met him, I was really, really an ass with him. Because he bought Louis Funeral Home. And Mr. Louis, I can say, without hesitation, was an ass. Was a really, really bad person. And he wasn't really nice to me, which I didn't care. But I cared that if somebody came to the funeral home and needed service, that they should be given a different service, a decent service, and be treated respectfully, even if they couldn't afford to pay. So when Henry Epstein came to town, and this comes from the fact that my whole career, I may come out of the closet many times here for you tonight. Throughout my career, I have always done free funerals. If I knew of somebody who needed it, and it happened once I was in Washington D.C. There was a Jew who was buried without a rabbi because they couldn't afford to pay, and that really impacted me greatly when I just started. So I decided that I would always do the funerals for free if the situation arose and warranted. So when Henry came in, I told him, "Here's the deal. If you ever get somebody who needs a free funeral, you will call me, and you call me first, and you do yours for your cost or for free, and I'll definitely do my services for free as well." And so I was really arrogant. It turns out that's what Henry has always done, and he has been extremely graceful about this. I had one case where I did the mother's funeral at Louis, and then the brother died. These people at that point didn't have that much money. So they went to another funeral home in town, or rather not mention the name, who basically told them, the cheapest I can do for you is $2,000 direct cremation. And I will tell you now why I think cremation is not a great idea. But, and this is the perfect venue for me to talk about it, rather than when somebody dies. And then, I don't want to have a debate with somebody the moment they have their dead in front of them. But anyway, that funeral home would say, the only thing you can do for you is $2,000 direct cremation. No casket, no nothing. Just give us your brother, or give you a bag of ashes. So the guy was freaking out. He called me. I called Louis. They gave them a full funeral, full service for whatever he could afford to pay. And obviously I did it. But given that Henry couldn't be here with us, he had some conference or something, and obviously I will beat on him forever, having failed me. So we'll gain us some points. So I decided I'll talk with you about anything you wanted to know about funeral, everything, things you are dying to know. And I want to believe that is a question that is big in people's minds, big in people's heads, because at the end of the day, Judaism is a religion about life, about this world, about how you make this world better, with no guarantees of any world to come. It's really not, well, I can talk to you about that as well. But I would say for Judaism, it's irrelevant if there is a life after this one or not. Judaism is a religion to be a faith and a community to be lived here and now. If there is something else afterwards, it's profit, as my grandfather would say, but we don't know. We know that the only guaranteed immortality may be your children, maybe the people you impact, your disciples, your students, the fact that people remember you, but at the end of the day, chances are in a couple hundred of years, nobody's going to remember us. And maybe it's no great loss, but why would you think you're that relevant? I don't think I'm that relevant. But, but still you live on perhaps through your DNA, perhaps through your ideas. That's the one that's guaranteed. Everything else is up for grabs. And I am happy to discuss with you what are the Jewish views on that. In fact, the only question I received when Roseanne put the question out for people asking, what do you want to know? Only one question came in, was from Bill Tameas, and deals with the issue I fight with him a lot about, which is reincarnation, which I will address later. I just tell you that at the end of the day, in Judaism, every possibility, from the fact that you're born, you die. Remember how it was before you were born? Nothing, so it means nothing, to the other end, with reincarnation, resurrection of the dead. There's a broad spectrum of possible Jewish beliefs, and I would say that none of them is more right or wrong. Jews are very, very good at coming up with textual sources to justify whatever the hell they want. So I can find justification for anything you want. And if I can find it, it's my fault, because I'm sure somebody already did. The thing that Judaism has, certainly, and I find great wisdom, is the way we handle death, the way we handle death rituals. I personally find that to be a way in Judaism is far, far superior than other religions, especially Christianity. Well, obviously, when you talk about Judaism, it's broad spectrum, and Christianity is a broad spectrum, but the times I have been to, and you know me, and I'm not, no, God forbid, I want to offend anybody here, especially not Fred Wickman, but if I offend Roseanne, I don't care. She's used to it. But Fred, I would, but understanding that Christianity is a broad spectrum. When I have gone to Christian services, I have found them Christian services for death, relating to death, very, very unfulfilling and trying to put lipstick on a pig, because, and I'll be, I'm never shy to be blatant, tell what I think. I specifically remember the service when Ty's stepfather died, and we went to, was a really kind of crazy fundamentalist Lutheran church, the wrong kind of Lutherans, the ones who Missouri Synod, the one who hates our guts, who the service was so like, he didn't die, he rested, he went to be with nobody said the man died, he's going to rot now, he's not going to be here anymore. None of that. And even the worst part was that then we went to the cemetery, and I found, as a psychologist, no closure, because you go in, you say, well, you leave the casket and everybody leaves. Being me, I'll be afraid somebody comes in and takes the body out or robs the casket or something. I want to put it on the ground and make sure it's done. And I think that in reality, Jewish rituals, and again, I would say that perhaps, speaking as a psychologist, as a clergyman, is the only area where Judaism is better than Christianity, is that. Because in everything else, Christians do better than we do. They're better at getting people's money. They're better at convincing them to come. They're better at drawing up more members. They do a great job in all of those. But the one small area I think Jews do well is in what relates to death, because our rituals relating, and this is, by the way, I'm talking marketing here, not the intrinsic value of the religion. Obviously, everybody has their own, but it's our Jewish rituals concerning death provide finality. I think that if you don't provide for people an opportunity to mourn, and to mourn appropriately within the context of death, then the mourning never ends. Judaism is very, very clear about when people die, what you do. Well, that's the whole obsessive Jewish way of being. It's called halacha, right? The Jewish law. This is what you can do, this is what you can't do. The limits are very clear. And it goes from a very, very stern way to slowly, with time, make it more and more relaxed until after a certain period of time, a year, 11 months, you go back to normal life. Assuming you practice it the traditional way. And again, I'm happy to explain as much or as little as you guys want. So it's your nickel, your time. But I find that the Jewish practices relating to death and to honoring the dead are ones that, by acknowledging the reality of death, make us value more life rather than, I find particularly terrifying the idea that you tell a child, oh, grandma, she's not with us anymore, she went to sleep. Shit, if they told me that, I'll never go back to sleep. I already have a hard time falling asleep. Imagine someone told me that, you go to sleep and they put you in a box and they put you in the ground. So, I think we fail to not to tell people what things are. That's my big take on this. I can continue talking forever. I can talk with you about every ritual in detail. Why do you do what you do? Tell me what you want. I'm here for you. And then I'll tell you why I don't think you should be cremated. Yes, ma'am. Pat McKenna.
So Jews don't believe in an afterlife. Is that right? Or Judaism?
No, I didn't say that. I said that it's unlike Christianity, that especially the kind of Christianity I know in Brazil, where I contend that the church, well, throughout Latin America, where the church is an element of the oppression of the people, because they say, don't worry about this life, in the next life, you're going to be great. So you put all your chips on the next life, and this life you're screwed, and don't worry. What Judaism does, there's a very, very broad spectrum of possible Jewish beliefs, going from nothing to all the way to reincarnation, resurrection, the resurrection of the dead at the time of the Messiah. What I'm saying is that for a Jew to believe in life after death, to believe in anything else, is irrelevant, because Judaism doesn't change.
So, go ahead.
No, that's it.
So, in Judaism, are there angels as there are in Christianity?
Yes, there's a belief in angels, yes. By the way, there was a rabbi here in town. He's deceased now. What was his name? The one who you thought was so arrogant? Rabbi at the Conservative Temple.
Give me a minute.
Yeah, the guy wrote the book about Jewish angels.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, I may have it downstairs. I'll give it to you. He's deceased now. I like him, but he was a little, he liked himself a lot.
So what part do they play in Judaism?
Angels are like robots. They're like messengers of God that do things that God wants done. And you'll see that in the Bible. And I think according to one midrash, it says that for every blade of grass, God creates an angel that stays on top of it and tells it, grow, 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 grow. That's the multiplicity of angels that you could have.
Okay.
But then we find angels like in the Bible. I mean, in the regular Bible, you find that when God wants Abraham to sacrifice or not to sacrifice his son, he sends an angel to hold him. And does God won't lower himself to do it, God himself. And then obviously, as the society gets more complex, the book gets more complex. In the book of Ezekiel, you find all kinds of descriptions of angels, and you find the book of Daniel, so, and obviously as you get to the later books, they're more sophisticated concepts because society is more sophisticated. Well, no, they definitely exist, but yeah.
Well, I have a question. And I read somewhere in the last year that there's an organization, I think based in California, that doesn't believe in burial, doesn't do burial, doesn't do cremation, but they compost bodies.
Yeah, well, that's funny because I don't know what you mean by compost. Do you mean like Soylent Green? Remember that film? Wasn't that a great film?
I didn't see the movie, but what they do is there's a sealed container. The body goes into the container along with whatever substances are going to be used to break down the body. And then it goes into a storage area and they turn it every once in a while. And after,
Really?
yeah. So how would Judaism
So,
look
so,
upon
so
that?
that's fun. That's funny because here's the deal. When I was on São Paulo, I learned about this. That whereas it's a sideline to what you're going to say, what you asked. That whereas when you buy your plot in a Jewish cemetery, it's forever. You know, that's your plot forever. There have been cases in certain places in Europe, like when you go to Prague, that they would never remove the bones of the person that's dead, but they would bury people on top of them, like sometimes 7 times. And what they did in Prague specifically was, so there was the walls of the cemetery, and in as much as, first of all, they dug it deep, and then they buried people. And then once they got to the floor, and there was no more space, they built up the cemetery. So when you are like in Prague, you walk on the street level, it's here, and the cemetery is like 3 or 4 stories high, because there's all these people buried on top. Okay, so that's the Jewish way. The Christian way, at least in Brazil, is that the bones are buried for a period of time, and afterwards they open the grave, they take out the bones and they put them somewhere else, or they throw them somewhere. There's all kinds of arrangements, but the grave is not forever. And when you think about this in a bizarre way, it's really the Jewish way may not be the best way, because if part of Jewish thinking is you always take an idea. If this idea is good now, if I take it to the extreme, is it still good or not? And the idea of preserving the corpse, preserving the place where you bury people, is not a great idea, because at the end of the day, give it 1 million generations, the whole earth would become one big cemetery. The practice it doesn't, right? People forget when people are buried and they build parking lots on top of it, and et cetera, et cetera. But the idea, at least in principle, the Jewish idea is one that goes against the environment, right? Because you end up using all the earth for burying people. Not a good deal. Yeah. So I think thus disposing of the body would be great.
Somebody there.
Okay. Thank you. I'll check that later. Personally, thank you. I often thought that what would I like done with my body to make a natural, because the Jewish way is to go back to the earth the most natural way. So for instance, in Israel, people are buried no casket. They're buried just with a tachrichin, it's a shroud, and you pop them in the ground. What's kind of weird, side note also, is that in Israel, even in Jerusalem, where my grandparents are buried, what they did is there was a cemetery and it had earth. They didn't want to bury them like they did in Prague, 2-3 high. So what they did is they made a building that has pillars, and then there's like a whole area, bottom, that has earth in it. And then you buried people, it's like a floor that on all the sides, on 6 sides, bottom right, and the sides are cement, it's huge, and it's filled with earth, and then they put the body there. So people are buried on earth, although really they are on the air. And that way you can go as high as you want. That's how my grandparents are buried. I'm not crazy about this idea, but it's a way that you bury them on earth and you still, but you still use the space. I personally thought it would be great to create a nature preserve and to be buried there, and be allowed to obviously to be buried, not, because obviously the other alternative would be what the Zoroastrians do. It's called a tower of silence. You know what a tower of silence is? Make a really big tower, you put the corpses there, and then the vultures come and eat the person.
It strikes me that if we're worried about running out of space to bury people, we should bury them vertically instead of horizontally.
You could. That one you could.
Get more people per acre.
Right. Well, again, that you could. So I would say that, for some bizarre reason, in Judaism, we are not supposed to cremate people. So the reasons they give you for not cremating people are totally stupid. And in fact, in the beginning of last century, Reformed congregations were all about, we're going to abandon the stupidity, these old-fashioned ways, and we're going to do the most reasonable thing to do with the corpse, which is to cremate them. And cremation, for all intents and purposes, is absolutely great. You dispose of the body, you get rid of it, you have ashes, you can do whatever you want to that, you can bury the ashes, you can do whatever you want to do with it. And, you can even bury them, because the problem, obviously, I think it's important to have a place to remember people, but that's my opinion. That's Jewish opinion as well. But for all intents and purposes, cremating people would be great. The only halachic traditional explanation for not doing it is, and this is so bizarre, which is like, I don't understand here in North America, you invite somebody for dinner, for lunch, and you pay the bill, and then the person says, oh, can I pay let me leave the tip. Why? If I can pay the lunch, I can't afford 15-20% more to pay the dinner. Stupid, right? So, so similar, the Jewish answer is like that when the dead comes, when Messiah comes, that's the most traditional possible vision. When the Messiah comes, the dead will come back to life, and then God will rebuild them, and it will be they're supposed to have some kind of bone in the base of the column. I don't know. Again, I'm not a doctor, but there's supposed to be some bone there, according to tradition, which I don't think makes sense. Never decomposes. That one stays there forever. I think it's impossible, but that's what the Midrash says. And when Messiah comes, you'll be reconstructed from that bone. And if you're cremated, you will not be able to come back to life. And for me, that is so stupid, because it's just like the idea that, I can pay for dinner, but I can't pay for the tip. If God is capable of bringing the dead back to life, he surely is capable of making it from ashes as well. I mean, that stands to logic. But having said that, so much so that the Reformed Judaism was like pro-cremation, that there are some old Reformed synagogues in this country. Specifically, I'm thinking of one in San Francisco. The Reformed synagogue in San Francisco has their own crematory. And when I applied for that job, and I had a really great chance when I just graduated rabbinical school, I had a great chance because some of my relatives were on the board, and I found out they had a crematory. I passed. Why? Because even though I said that I think it's the best possible way, and I still do, it wasn't by the fact that the way cremations affect my life, my family personally. Actually, I was going to get the picture, but I don't have it. My great grandparents, my father's mother's parents, who were cremated right after they were gassed in Treblinka. So for me personally, I definitely uphold the right of people to do whatever they want. I will, who am I to judge you or to tell you what you should do? But but just as I don't impose on anybody what I think they should do, for me, the idea of cremation is so closely related to the Holocaust, and certainly was done, I believe, partially to accelerate the industrial process that was the Holocaust. Well, the Holocaust, according to my thesis advisor, Dr. Rifkin, was what made the Holocaust unique was putting the process started by Adam Smith of mass production to making the end product to kill Jews, to kill people. So, and so it was the most effective way to get rid of people. Also remember the corpses, killing people is easy, getting rid of the corpse is difficult. And corpses also bring disease. And the Nazis were very afraid of disease. The other thing is that I think there was something about denigrating the Jews, because knowing the Jews oppose cremation, that's exactly what they did. I can't speak for the Nazis, but I can't avoid but thinking that that was one of the ways they found to humiliate Jews. Because, can you guys hear me? Is there a problem? Can you hear me? Oh, okay, good. So, because we know that there were other things the Nazis did on purpose to humiliate Jews, like to do actions, to round up people to be killed exactly on Jewish holidays, rather than just to make people's lives slightly more miserable, to further lower their morale. So that's why but I guess yes, if you want to be decomposed, I guess halachically would be forbidden, because you're also I don't think you can do anything to expedite decomposition. I have to think about that, but probably it's not kasher, but not halachic. But I don't know. The only now talking about that on a related issue, there are certain things, however, were totally bad. There's no reason whatsoever. It's really vile, and you should never do. And I think the world's getting a little better place, but in the past, at least, maybe funeral homes really exploited people a lot. And there's something called embalming. Anybody knows what embalming is? What involves? You do? Yeah. So embalming, so then it's supposed to preserve the body. Presently, what they do is really gruesome, really horrendous. It's unnecessary, and it's made to upsell it for upselling, to get more money out of people. And obviously, the idea is, don't you want the best for your old mother, who took care of you? So but that one is again, whereas cremation is also against our tradition, but if that's what people want, I won't fight them. Embalming is really gruesome and it's unnecessary, because if you have a refrigeration, you can keep the body as long as you need. And and funeral homes can make money that way, without having to violate the body and put, take out the blood and put out formaldehyde and crap, stuff like that. What else? I have much to talk about. I can talk the whole night until it gets dark.
You said you were going to talk about reincarnation.
Oh yeah. That's. Let me get my cell phone here, because Bill's question. Hopefully he'll listen. I'll give him the video. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Let me find Bill's question here. Bill says, here you go. I can't attend this because Marsh and I will be on the road to Denver, but would you consider telling people how do you come to accept the idea of reincarnation, and whether there's anything particularly Jewish about that? Okay, that was Bill's question. So here's the deal. And tonight I'll be coming out of the closet more than you ever expected, because I take kind of pride on the fact that you guys really don't know all my weirdness. Because if you did, you probably would belong to a decent temple. But I think I tend to, unless you really know me well, most of you do, which is a problem. I'm proud of the fact that most congregants who are only ancillarily involved have no idea where I stand politically, which is great, because I shouldn't be representing one idea or the other. Albeit, obviously, I have personal ideas and I'm entitled to them, but not as the rabbi, I think. But as far as this goes, it's like this. There are many things about me you don't know. In Brazil, there are many things that you do, and they are acceptable, that I think here would be weird, at least, and at best, or the worst, may be source of embarrassment for most of you. Whereas I think people in this country don't consider hypnosis a serious endeavor. Hypnosis is a carnival trick, or people, whereas in Latin America, people are really big on that. The other one, wait. something the guru gave me. Denise is laughing at me, but it's this. It's a pendulum. So you ask a question, and the pendulum moves. Latin America is very acceptable. And obviously, what is moving, like a Ouija board, by the way, what's moving is my hand. What makes it move but the idea being that you ask a question, if you just stay still, your unconscious will act in a way to make it move to yes or no. Okay? So one of the things that is considered cool in Latin America is hypnosis. And talking about hypnosis, there's a further step to hypnosis, because if hypnosis is not weird enough by itself, there is past life regressions, which is in a hypnotic state, you do stuff with people to make them go back to something. I cannot tell you what is this something. I can only tell you that as somebody who did that, who have done that, haven't done this in years. At the end of the day, I only care about one thing, which is, does that solve people's problems or not? Even if it is hocus pocus, if by doing this exercise, you provide what Freud calls catharsis to people, and you solve their problems, then it's good. If it doesn't solve the problem, that's not good. Without even going to the point of when people describe a previous life, if it's real or not, if it's accurate or not. What I know is, so the many things talk about that, there is a family of rabbis who are also psychiatrists in Pittsburgh. I don't remember his name now just to my mind. Just slipped that they write a lot about it. It's not talk much about, because again, I think talking about hypnosis and past life regression is not something considered very scientific in our world, but they describe stories of people relating things who are beyond like the realization of your homoerotic fantasies. Oh, I'm a concubine of the Shah in Iran. No. People describe stuff like, I read accounts of somebody saying, this is the year, this is the city, I'm walking down the street, I see a barber shop on the right, there's a saloon on the left, there's a clothing store on here, and then people go back at the map and the phone book of that city, that year, and really the places are there. Because here's the deal, it could be that when somebody is describing to you whatever he's seeing in a supposedly previous life, he's just making stuff up, or he's just, he saw a movie and he's telling it to you, right? He's just relating back to you what he saw in a movie, or he didn't even pay, or he read something. But when somebody can describe in detail things, or can say, this is my name, this is my wife's name, these are my kids' names, and then they go and they check, and all matches, and it's somebody has nothing to do with him, there's something there, right? There's also all kinds of accounts of, also done by, in the research by a psychologist, I think also from Pittsburgh, that of people kids who are born and they remember exactly a previous life. There is one group of people in the Middle East. They're called the Druze. The Druze are a minority some of them in Israel, Syria, and they are in Israel. They are pro-Israel. They serve in the army. They're good Arabs, but they're not Muslim. They're Druze, and the Druze believe in reincarnation. And the Druze tell stories of. So there's a kid born in this one village, and he has, the kid is born like with a birthmark here, and then a girl, and then she's all the time she's talking about her husband and her family and her life. Eventually they take her back, and she goes into the house and she recognizes everybody, and she says, is my pearl necklace still in the closet in the bedroom in the third drawer on the right? And it is, how that happened, I don't know, but it's documented stuff. So again, it's interesting that the Druze who are really big believers in it experience a lot of it. Oh, and the same person who's born like with a birthmark here, they found out that this is a woman who was assassinated and somebody cut her throat. This stuff, if you want later, I can give you some sources. So how come? So, and again, and as I told you, I have done some past life regressions for people. And what I found is that regardless if it's true or not, and I'm not saying it's true, it probably did, but I'm not saying you need to believe it. I'm saying that if you do a past life regression to somebody and you all of a sudden, they experience something, again, what Freud called catharsis, and it solves their problem, then you have done them something good. There's a book, I may have it still here, by an Orthodox guy called Jonathan Gershon, who he talks about past lives of the Holocaust. And his theory is, how come today we find way more people willing to become Jewish than ever before, on one hand, and on the other hand, at the same time, we find so many Jews who are so disconnected from Judaism. And his theory is like this. According to him, according to traditional Jewish belief, a Jew is a child of a Jewish mother. So a Jewish mother is a portal, like a Star Trek portal, that allows a soul that is in heaven to come down to earth. During the Holocaust, 6 million Jews were murdered. So going by odds, 3 million were women. So 3 million portals were closed. So what happened? Some people who would have been souls who would have been born Jewish. I forgot to tell you, when you do past life regressions, somebody who claims to be Jewish in this life was always Jewish in previous lives, and somebody who's not Jewish never claimed to have been Jewish in a previous life. That I forgot to say that. And don't ask me why. I'm just relating to you what I have read and what I have seen. And so there'll be, 3 million portals were closed. So Jewish souls that were in heaven want to come down to earth through a birth can't, because there's no Jewish mother. So they are born in non-Jewish mothers. And I have done more conversions than anybody else I can think of. And I hear from people saying, I always felt Jewish. At the same time, and Jonathan Gerson says that also, is why are there so many Jews who are so disconnected from their Judaism? Because they also may be souls from the Holocaust that suffer so much from being Jewish that they try to be as little Jewish as they possibly can. Okay, I'm done. But then, let's say you do a past life regression and the person remembers being a Jew in the previous life. And there's accounts of this, like people who are agoraphobic. They are afraid of being in tight spaces, closed in. So there's a story that somebody, he did this regression, and then the guy remembered that he was a Jew in the previous life, and he was hiding in a very tight place with a bunch of other people, and the Nazis came and they found them and they killed them all. From there, the guy derived that this is why I am afraid of being in tight spaces. But once he did that, and there was catharsis, he stopped being afraid of being in tight spaces. So again, I say, is the rebirth, the reincarnation story true or not? I don't know. But if it helped the guy not to be agoraphobic anymore, then it has some value. So why do I believe personally in reincarnation? Because in the absence of the ability to explain a bunch of stuff that I see and I live and I have observed, if the only answer I can find so far is one as far-fetched as this one, is to believe that we have a soul and the soul comes back, then that's the one I go with. I hope I answer. And I hope I answer my most favorite co-author, Bill. Bill, by the way, says that as a Christian, you cannot have reincarnation. You cannot believe in reincarnation because that would negate Jesus's grace. Supposedly, according to Christianity, you have one bout only, and Jesus will take care of you later. You know, that's Bill's vision. And you know, I love Bill. I just never say that in front of him. In front of him, I only criticize him because I'm Jewish. That's all we do.
I'm not so sure that that's universal throughout Christianity, though. It may be, it's probably prevalent in respecting Bill, but I'm not, you know, nothing is universal, and neither is that.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it is interesting how how the religions and the divisions of the religions and the cultures interact in this, and some of it comes from you were talking about some tactics that Christians use to say, well, you know, you're just it's a sleep thing. There's an old country song with the lyrics are, "Mama's not dead, she's only asleep and patiently waiting for Jesus to come," and
right.
That fits exactly what you were talking about. But I wonder how, though, that we reconcile the concept of God, and I was particularly reminded of it right at the end of service 3 last night. There's a prayer that says that I'm as close as you breathing, and I'm as far as the farthest star, and that and to Moses I said, I will show you everything that I've got, but you can never see me or really know me. And right. I think that's a part of I think it's a part of the afterlife concept.
No, possibly, but you know what I find interesting. Let me tell you, now that I told you all in favor of reincarnation, let me tell you what's wrong with it. You know, because I'm critical, which is like this. If you go with that theory, it goes, why do we come back? Why do souls come back? Why do I come back in this way rather than a random way? Because the idea of reincarnation puts lots of power in the hand of the soul. The soul decides how do I want to come back? The idea being that each soul needs to seek perfection. And in as much as it probably cannot get it in one bout, it can have many bouts. And the soul, in fact, chooses to come the way, you know, so you know, I have often said that I'm lucky to have been born white, male, Jewish, straight, in a affluent family. Because had I been born a black girl in Africa, I could put 1,000 times as much effort as I have put in life, and I wouldn't get to where I am. Because being a black girl in Africa sucks. You know, I mean, so I'm not saying that, in no way I'm saying that being a black girl in Africa is inferior to anybody. I'm just saying that just the opposite. The stance that they are in life is messed up. So, but apparently, the idea of reincarnation would say, no, that's what the soul chose. See, and here's the deal. In an ancient world, for instance, even today, I guess, to be born without a hand, without an arm, it's a tragedy. A tragedy for you, you're handicapped, it's a tragedy for your family, societies were poorer, you probably starve, you're going to cause your family to starve, right? But if you look at this from a reincarnation perspective, it's great. What does it say? It says that you did something so wonderful with your hand in the previous life that the hand is not needed in this life anymore. You only need to figure out how to do whatever to elevate the rest of your body. That's the silver lining. The reality is if you really believe that, if you really believe that the soul chooses its place where it is, the circumstances under which it is born, then, so, if I'm, then why should you do anything to help anybody? Because you are in fact you are affecting negatively the path of that soul. So that is the downside of this belief in reincarnation. Okay, so think about, that maybe you're born a person that suffers a lot for a myriad of reasons. Why should I get involved and try to make this guy suffer less? Maybe he was a bad person in the previous life, and now he needs this life to experience the suffering. And if I'm being nice to him, if I'm being Joyce, for instance, and making people's lives better, then I'm actually acting against the path of that soul.
Well, how is it that we are assuming that the soul has the power here, and that the soul can assign itself to another aspect of existence? What about God here? Isn't the omnipotent God the one who says, okay, I've got soul number 235 here, and this soul is going to do this, and the soul has no choice?
No. Thank you. You just gave me my answer. I was like, how the hell I'm going to answer to him? You just gave me the answer. because that takes us back to Bill Tamel's, the place where he was born. Lake Wobegon. It's also called Woodstock, Illinois.
Yes.
Right? Woodstock, yes. Illinois is the site of that greatest religious film ever, Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is everything you need to know about religion is in Groundhog Day, because it explains to you free will versus God omniscience. That God knows everything, but free will is granted. So the answer to your question is free will, because somebody asked me about angels. Angels don't have free will. People have free will. But, okay, so that's the difference between people and angels. Angels don't have free will. Angels do what God wants. People have free will. And your choices determine what you are and what you become. That's for sure. No room to debate that. At least within Jewish thought, right? That free will is granted. At the same time, how can God know everything if we have free will? Because like a chess game, God knows every possible permutation. So if I remain standing, it's okay. If I stand up, God also knows I was going to stand up. And if I continue sitting down, these things can happen. If I stand up, those other things can happen. Well, that's Groundhog Day, right? So free will is granted. And that says everywhere in Pirkei Avot, it's everywhere in the Talmud. And that again comes to answer the issue of the difference between angels and people, because people have free will. So you have the choice.
Well, I won't belabor the point much longer, but I will quibble just this. Okay, God has the power to assign souls, but then once the souls arrive and are incarnated, then free will takes over.
Again, what I read, I'll just remind, top of my head, some story of a baby born, and again, it's anecdotal, right? But a baby born very, very, very sick, and the baby was clearly going to die, and the practitioner comes in and tells the baby, "Look, you have a choice. You don't need to die. You can choose to live as well." And like this, and then the baby turns around and leaves. Again, I understand also that we choose the stories we relate, and we choose the stories we believe in to match our belief. But free will. Yeah. But why do I really believe in personally? Now I came out of the closet in reincarnation, is because how come you meet people that you utterly hate their guts for no absolute reason? On the other hand, you meet people and you speak with them for an hour, and it's as if you had known them your whole life, because somehow there is something, yes, I understand it could be their smell, could be their pheromones, could be all kinds of stuff. But it's the only reasonable, I think this most implausible and unreasonable explanation is the most reasonable, plausible answer I have found so far to justify all kinds of stuff I have seen and lived through. That's it, how does that change? It changes nothing, but
there's a lot more we don't know than we know.
Right, but I think also, my father used to say that he was a guy who had no faith. My father was a communist as well. So certainly, I told you he was treasurer of the Socialist Party in Brazil, right? So, he said, I have no faith. Whatever happened to me is crap. But when you have faith and you have a pain, that's purifying your soul. So at least for me, it's comforting the thought that, there is something afterwards. If it's true or not, I don't know. But again, the big difference, and that I consider to be a big difference in Judaism, is that even though I believe there is something afterwards, again, Hebrews called Gilgul, the souls come back. I don't do anything to gain merit for a Judaism doesn't tell me to do anything now to gain merit for a future life. It doesn't just tell me to do now because it's the right thing to do. Tzedakah comes from tzedek, from justice, it's not charity to gain merit in the eyes of God or whatever of the universe. It's about doing the right thing. It's about sharing some of what you have. That you are lucky to have what you have. You got it by luck. Other people have less luck, so it's your job to share the luck with them, for instance. And by the way, we forgot to collect money last night, Pat, for dinner. I forgot. You're not there. So anyway, where else? ¿Alguien en español tiene alguna pregunta, comentario, reclamación? Spanish people chance. César del Bosque de Zacatecas. Oh, Jorge de non-Chile Chombo Panamanian.
Did you see there was a question on the chat?
Oh no, let me look. I didn't. Thank you. In Judaism, how is the person bury the body after the person dies? So can it be buried? Okay, great question, Elias. Gracias. So I'll explain. First of all, I came ready. I'm not using it, but I have lots of books. This one was given to me, by the way, by Henry Epstein. It's a Tahara Manual of Practices. So what we do is like this. So this is the book that gives you all the details. I'm not going to give you the details, not relevant. I personally did Tahara once for somebody who I knew, which was really powerful. Do you remember Denise? Was Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. The first thing I want to say is when people die, it's a pain because they really don't collaborate. You try to bury and they're like just dead. They don't move. They make it hard. There are all kinds of rituals, all kinds of prayers you need to do, all kinds of, there's also different traditions in different communities. But the main thing is that you need to wash the body. And that gets me to something. When I'm serving somebody, right? I have wine, I'm going to serve. I serve like this. Okay? I have seen people do the opposite. Like I have the cup and then they serve like this, like this. The other way. And that I remember being in a Hasidic court, and the only Hasidic Rebbe in all of Latin America, Joe Bear, the Ratzenfer Rebbe who was in Sao Paulo, he's deceased now, and somebody served the Rebbe like this, the other way, and they threw all the wine away. It was a big to-do. Why? Because when you wash the dead, you need to do it in a different way than you would do normally. So you don't wash the dead like this, you take the water and you throw it like this. And to serve somebody any drink like this is kind of a bad omen because it has to do with death. These I remember vividly. So we're full of little, I don't know, bizarre, beliefs, hacks. I don't know, whatever they're called. Like, I don't know. It's bad luck, but there's a superstition. Perhaps that's the right word. Thank you, Denise. Say I'm forgetting how to speak, and I'm glad I have Denise here to help me. So you wash the body, then you're supposed to dry him up. There's all kinds of issues. If there are wounds, what do you do? Because you're supposed to save the blood. If the guy is oozing blood, you can take things and stop or even hold it, wash it and hold him. That's because every part of the person is holy. So you can't just trash it. And then you save it all and you bury with him. And then people are normally buried first in a tachrichin. Tachrichin is a shroud. A shroud is basically like pants, like pajama pants, a shirt. There's an undershirt, a shirt for a man. Something goes on top of the head. If it's a guy, you normally wrap him in his prayer shawl, but you have to make the prayer shawl non-kosher, so you have to cut the knots, take them out, and then you either in Israel you just wrap them again in another piece of cloth, or here you put them in a casket. And to get a little more technical, problem with a casket, you need to put the person in a casket that will decompose. So, and they will decompose the most natural way. So you cannot have nails in a Jewish casket. That's why they are made, here they're made really nice, but they have wood pegs. I saw with Henry Epstein in Romania, the caskets that they use, they are meant for rotting because they're basically oversized orange crates with, there's a structure, but there's big, like instead of having all the wood, there's just some wood and there's some space, so that when the body goes into the earth, it is immediately in touch with the earth and the water and decomposes. The idea is for it to decompose. Okay. But again, in its own time. In the United States, we have an additional problem, which is here, many cemeteries demand that people be buried in caskets and be buried in what's called vaults. And a vault is like, besides having the casket, you put the casket inside what amounts to a big shoebox, huge, of cement, and it goes inside there. The cement may be porous or not, so you can have a metal vault as well. The problem is that delays the body's decomposition. So, I'm sorry. The reason why you put a vault, because in modern cemeteries, the grass is cut by machine. And if you put just a regular casket, eventually what the casket does is that the sides will fall in and the top will come down. Then if you go to an old cemetery, you see in about 50 to 80 years, you see that everything settles and there'll be a hole, like a thing like this, where the grave is. And if they have a stone, the stone topples over as a mess. So in North America, they obligate you now to put caskets in a vault, and the vault is cement. And that way, doesn't matter what happened with the casket, the surface never changes. But the kosher way is that even if you make a vault, you make vaults with holes in the bottom. That way permits the water to come in and out to accelerate the decomposition. The goal is to decompose. So I don't know if I provide enough of a sordid answer. Si no, le explico después en español de nuevo.
Sí, no, Roy, quería hacer una consulta aprovechando que tocó el tema. El concepto que de las cosas que leído que son interesantes, de que hay una alma vieja en una vida nueva. ¿Cómo pudiera ser interpretada en el judaísmo si puede ser una idea que yo pudiera tomar como válida o es una influencia de alguna otra cultura o creencia en cuanto a este tipo de cosas?
Contesto en inglés.
Sí,
So
sí, yo lo entiendo, no se preocupe.
he asked this idea of reincarnation, how could it be to have an old soul in a new body? How can that be understood in Judaism? And that's exactly it, that the soul chooses or ends up having to come back different ways. And yet at the same time, I also read somewhere that every once in a while you have a new soul, a soul that hasn't come yet, as their first bout, and new souls, somehow they are meant to have lots of suffering. Because I guess that's what the souls come to earth for, is to experience suffering. So when you find somebody who suffers a lot, it's because it's a brand new soul. But yeah, I mean, I guess again, everybody comes to experience some stuff. That's why you can never give your experience to somebody else. They need to live through it. And the maximum you can do is have solidarity, because you can't share people, you can only be with the person. You can't share their pain, because their pain. It's something they need to live through. You can just try to make it better by being with them, by being a friend, by being a companion.
Thanks, Rabbi.
No sé todas las contestaciones. Ojalá te sirva.
No, thank you, Rabbi.
It got dark. Anybody else? Dígame, César.
Hey, Rabbi.
Está con su mamá mirando para arriba y para abajo.
Wrote a couple of, yes, we are eating. A little late. I have 2 questions in your WhatsApp, but I will try to tell you in English. The first one, everything on the Torah is allegory or really happened?
No, okay, I'm not sure it's necessarily correlated to this subject, but I would say, as I have said before, every story I tell you is true. Some of them even happen. Because there are different levels of truth. There is truth that is logos, that is like, logical truth, stuff that really happened. And there's truth that's mythos. Mythos is not a lie. Mythos is a truth that hasn't happened yet. If I tell you, don't put your finger in the outlet because you're going to get an electrical shock, even though you have never done it, maybe if you have never done it, if you put your finger, you will get an electric shock, but you don't know it yet. You just need to try. So I would say that everything that's in the Torah is true, but some of it, it's an allegorical truth. And then the goblins exist. I'm not sure what goblins are. Little devils. That's a whole new lecture about the difference between the Jewish version of the devil and the Christian version of the devil. I was now in Brazil. I had lots of conversation with people about that, and I can definitely tell you that the Jew, in my opinion, and I had this discussion many times, there are aspects of Christianity that still mirror the dualistic faith of ancient peoples that have a God for good and a God for evil. So in Christianity, you end up having Jesus on one side and the devil on the other. Help me here, Fred, if I'm wrong. But that in some way would put Jesus and the devil apart with each other, because after all, one can't destroy the other, right? I mean, if Jesus is really good, he'll destroy the devil. If God was really good, he'll destroy the devil, but they can't, so the devil stays there. Whereas in Judaism, the version of the devil, in Hebrew called Hasatan, is that, I can say that Daisy, my favorite dog ever, she was satanical. Why? Because I had her and I had Jose. And she loved me so much. Nobody had. I think she's the reincarnation of my grandmother, because nobody loved me as much as my grandmother or Daisy. And Daisy hated Jose even when he got close to me. So in that sense, she was satanic, because the Jewish version of the devil is that the devil is just another angel that loves God so much that he can bear the thought of God caring for humans. So he is constantly putting humans in trouble, and that's the whole book of Job. Putting humans in trouble to show to God how humans are not worthy of God's love. So that is totally different than everything bad that happened in the universe is the devil's doing, because to some degree, and help me again here, Fred, and I love having you here, because first of all, because I love you, and number two, because you bring some rationality to my craziness, is that from this, and again, and I understand Christianity is not monolithic, there's different, but the overall sense is the devil is a standalone power that to some degree rivals God and Jesus. Or am I wrong, Fred?
No, it's a dichotomy of good versus evil.
Right.
Best personified by my mom's concept. She was convinced that she could sense sense the devil's presence. She knew that the devil had a forked tail and horns, and that the devil exuded brimstone. And so she always knew when the devil was around because she could smell the brimstone. But that's just kind of a side thing. But you're right. This is the embodiment of the concept of good versus evil. It's the devil versus God, not just Jesus, but the devil versus God.
Right. Whereas in Judaism, I think it's really about autonomy. It's about you. Maybe the devil may tempt you to do bad things, but just to show God how unworthy you are. Or put different, in Judaism, we acknowledge. See, in Judaism, we acknowledge two things. First of all, that everything is God. Even the bad stuff that happens in the world is God. Because in one of our prayers, we say something about God, Ose Shalom Uboret Hakol, God who makes peace and creates everything. But the text comes from, I think it's Isaiah, where it says that God, Borei Shalom Ve'ose Tara. God creates peace, makes peace, and creates evil. That's what it says in the Bible. And the prayer changes it a little. But what it says is that Judaism is 100% monotheistic. There's no room in Judaism for non-monotheism. So even the evil stuff in the world is God. Both are God. And we carry in us both tendencies for good and evil. It's called Yetzer. Yetzer is an inclination. Again, it's come to deal with, once again, free will. We carry in us two Yetzarim, two inclinations, an inclination for good, an inclination for evil. According to, now it's going to get really exciting. According to our tradition, the inclination for good is 13 years younger than the inclination for evil, which means you are born only with the inclination for evil. Kids are essentially evil. They break stuff, they torture animals, they beat up on each other, they poke fun of each other, they're hurtful to each other, they bully each other, because kids are essentially evil. There's so much so that there's a story in the Talmud of a rabbi who would go to a potter and buy from him the dishes that came bad from the oven to give to his kids to allow them to break it, free will, so that they could let out the bad, enjoy breaking stuff. And then only when you are 13 years old, your inclination for good appears. That's when you have a bar mitzvah. What's a bar mitzvah? It's when you become an adult, means you begin to know how to differentiate between good and evil. And then you are held responsible for your choices, only at 13. Before that, if you do a crime, your father is considered guilty. But that deals with the inclination for good, inclination for evil. And what the rabbis say, which is fascinating, is that even inclination for evil, for bad things, is not necessarily bad. For instance, let's say if it wasn't for the Yetzer Hara, the inclination for evil, people would not get married, they would not build houses or do business. Why? Before there was Tinder and sexual liberation, why did people get married? to have sex with women. They wouldn't allow you to have sex before, remember, I don't know. First, Caesar was never born in this world, so he doesn't know about that. And then why people build houses, so there is something selfish in your desire to marry. There is something selfish and evil in your desire to build a house. You want to build a big house to be nicer than your neighbors, to show off to your neighbors. But that evil, if canalized properly, is going to build a house. Engage in business. There's evidently something eminently evil and selfish engaging in business, because you're making profit. The profit that you make comes from somebody else. So you're taking from him or her. So but then what boils down to is that even the Yetzer Hara is not totally, the intentional evil is not totally bad. Again, everything, good and evil, are part of us, are part of God.
Well, Christians are very they're just outright frightened of evil, and they're frightened of the devil. And I think part of the Trinity is a way that's developed over thousands of years, that, hey, if we can figure out a way to get up three beings to one over the devil, then let's go with God, the God's Son, Jesus, and the Spirit. And
right.
So we can fight this devil on three levels.
Right. But which is okay. But again, one of the things that I think I'm always telling you guys that Judaism does not have dogmas. In Judaism, we don't have I don't know what, I can't remember now what it's called, like a creed. For Christians, I believe in God Father and His Son Jesus.
Nice creed. Yeah.
We don't have that. But the only thing we have is, and that is undoubtedly, is that the only thing I can say is that Judaism is monotheistic. Well, I'm not even sure there is a God. I think believing in God, I think it's not even that relevant for being Jewish. But even this God that may not exist is only one. Because that's, because Judaism, again, is eminently monotheistic.
Well, the Christians get around that by saying 1 and 3, or 3 and 1.
Right.
So
no, right.
My wife tells me that the sun has gone down. Maybe we should
say again.
My wife tells me the sun has gone down, so maybe I should stop talking and we should do the thing.
No, we can continue later. Denise, come make yourself useful.
Anyway, this has been great.
I'm glad. Come back anytime. We always have opinions. What the hell is John? However, I don't know. Okay, so if y'all have a prayer book, Denise is going to be our assistant and congregation. But she has that. It's open for you on page 414. Let me move this. That's Denise. That's me. Let me move the QT cup this way. The wine goes that way. And okay, hold. So if you don't have the prayer book, I assume, but hang on, let me move this here so it can make this a little better. Maybe we'll do better. Okay, we're on page 414. I'll light the candle. Okay, we're on page 414. Our ancestors took words from scripture to voice their thanks to God, who sustains us from week to week. Within the ancient words of praise, we find prayers for life and health in the week to come. May their faith be ours as well, as we make their prayers our own. הנה לישועתי אפתח ולא אפחד, כי עזיבה זמנתיה, ויהי לי לישועה, ושפתם מים בששון ממעייני הישועה, ואדוני ישועה לעמך ברכתך סלע, אדוני צבאות עמנו משגב לנו אלוהי יעקב סלע, אדוני צבאות אשרי אדם בוטח בך, אדוני יושיע מלך יעננו ויום קוראנו, ליהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה וששון ועיקר, כן תהיה לנו כוס ישועות אשא, ובכן בשם אדוני אקרא. Blessing for the wine. The Kiddush gladdens our hearts. In this gladness, we look beyond the ugliness and misery that face our world. May our eyes always be open to unnoticed beauty and to blessings yet to be recognized. May we be ever mindful of our promise to help repair the brokenness of our world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. We praise eternal God, creator of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. Now we have spices here, samim. The added soul that Shabbat is said to confer is leaving us now. The fragrance of these spices lifts our spirits at the moment of its departing. It reminds us that the next 6 days also will pass and Shabbat will return. Their bouquet makes us yearn with thankful hearts for the sweetness of rest, the fragrance of growing things. We're grateful of the dream of a world healed from pain, pure and whole, as on the first Shabbat, when God rested from the work of having made our world. Smell. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei minei besamim. We praise you, eternal God, creator of the universe, who creates the world's spices. Now the candle. Shabbat now departs, and the workday begins as we behold the flame. Show people the flame, Denise. They see the flame. They can see the flame. We thank God for the energy and talents by which we turn Earth's raw materials into things of use and beauty. The candle's double wick reminds us that all qualities are paired. As I was telling you about the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Ra. We have the power to create many different fires, some useful, others harmful. May we never use our powers to do harm to our world. May the fires we kindle be holy ones, and we may bring light and warmth to all humanity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei meorei ha'esh. We praise you, eternal God, ruler of the universe, creator of light. Hold it high, but they can't see it, but that's okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, המבדיל בין קודש לחול, בין אור לחושך, בין יום השביעי לששת ימי המעשה. Baruch atah Adonai, המבדיל בין קודש לחול. Thank you, God, for the day of Shabbat that now concludes, for the blessings of peace and joy, bodily rest and spiritual refreshment. We're thankful. May Shabbat's influence accompany us into the new week, sanctifying all our activities and inspiring us to work with spirits renewed. May the day come when harmony and peace shall be embraced to all people, by all people. And then, here, this, so they can see what's going on. First, I'll drink the wine. Drink the wine a little. Now, put the candle down, put it on the plate. You guys can see. מבדיל בין קודש לחול, חטאותינו ימחול, זרענו וכספנו ירבה ירבה כחול ככוכבים בלילה. A good week, a week of peace, make gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace, make gladness reign and joy increase. And then, since Elijah the prophet associated with the coming of the Messianic era, time there will all be Shabbat. We sing the Eliyahu Hanavi, that if you happen to have the prayer books on page 419, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu HaTishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Agiladi, Bimera ve'yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Im Mashiach ben David, Im Mashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu HaTishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Agiladi. That's it. Shavua Tov, Good Voch, etc. That was more questions.
Shabbat Tov.
Anybody? Thank you for coming. Thank you for. If you have anything else to say, say it now, or forever hold your peace. No.
Pat, how are you feeling?
Better.
Good.
Thank you.
And we were
Shabbat Tov.
upset to hear you had been in the hospital. But Fred did the same thing several years ago.
Yeah, this is my second run around with this. So, yeah.
I had 2 episodes of that, and it was a different type of stone each time.
Oh, really? I wondered. I I'll be interested to see once they get mine out if it's the same thing I had last time. And literally, it was exactly 6 years ago that I was going through this for the first
Ooh,
time.
yeah.
But this time it's a little different because it's lodged in my kidney. It hasn't moved. So
Oh, I had the first one I had.
I'll let you two old people talk diseases.
right, because it's an old people's thing.
Yeah. The first one I had was spiky, and
Yeah.
it was not calcium. It was more related to what causes gout. It wasn't gout.
Oh, it's uric acid, uric.
Yeah, yes. It was uric. It was calcified uric acid, and the way that they dealt with it was with a procedure that they call lithotripsy.
Oh, did you have lithotripsy?
Twice.
Oh.
And it was very interesting because as